I've gone through the last year and a half's worth of issues of Harvard Business Review. I've culled our website and looked at the books we publish to pick 6 ideas that you need now. Leadership has never been as challenging as it is today. I think you'll be able to relate to what I'm about to tell you. As you know, organizations are flatter, competition is faster and less predictable, digitization is rewriting the rules of strategy, globalization is adding complexity, innovation is more critical than ever, and talent is harder to attract, engage, and retain. So what are you going to do about it? The first thing to think about is your idea of power. Power is not what it used to be. The Goliaths are being toppled by the Davids, from the network drivers of Uber to the crowd-funded creatives of Kickstarter. But the dynamics are confusing, especially to managers in traditionally powerful institutions. New power actors, and I take this phrase from an article we wrote about old power and new power, which you can find on hbr.org. New power actors differ from old power actors along 2 dimensions: the models they use to exercise power and the values they embrace. On this slide, you can see the difference between old power values and new power values. I won't drive you crazy by trying to read the slides to you. You can read them for yourself, but let me describe some of this. Some enterprises like Facebook have new power models but don't seem to embrace the values. Others, like Patagonia, have new power values but rely on old power business models. The point is, there are very few purely new power operations, particularly in the realm of business. You know, new power would be the Occupy Wall Street movement. It would be Arab Spring. And having said that, I'll also point out that those rarely sustain themselves. So a certain amount of old power, I guess, is necessary to manage new power, but you must recognize the growth and emergence of new power if you're going to lead your organization into the future. Understanding how the nature of power is really shifting, who has it, how it's distributed, and where it's heading will be a defining challenge for business in the 21st century. My second idea is that leaders can't just issue orders. One-way, top-down communication between leaders and their employees is no longer useful or even realistic. Today's leaders achieve far more engagement and credibility when they take part in genuine conversation with the people who work for and with them. The conversation should be a frank exchange of ideas and information with an implicit or explicit agenda. You must be clear. Corporate conversation reflects the new reality. Thanks in part to digital and social technologies, employees have found a public voice. They are talking about you on Twitter. They're posting photos of your organization on Instagram. They're all over Facebook talking about what it's like to work for you. They will use social media whether you like it or not. The good news is that people can talk up a company in a way that's more interesting and attractive than any obvious public relations campaign. In other words, there is nothing more damaging to your company than to have your employers talk it down, belittle it. On the other hand, when your employees are happy, when they are feeling fulfilled, when they feel that they are being heard, and that their priorities mesh with the organization's priorities, their voice on social media will be loud and clear and very persuasive. My third point is about influence. Having talked about the rise of new power, influence now matters more than traditional power. So let's look at that. In puzzling over it was better to be feared or loved as a leader, Machiavelli, our old friend, famously said that because it's nearly impossible to do both, be loved and be feared, leaders should opt for fear. But research from Amy Cuddy at Harvard Business School and a couple of co-authors, Matthew Kohut and John Neffinger, refutes that theory and suggests that leaders would do much better to begin with love, that is, to establish trust through warmth and understanding. Most leaders today approach their jobs by emphasizing competence, strength, and credentials, but without first building a foundation of trust, they run the risk of eliciting fear, resentment, and envy. Beginning with warmth allows trust to develop, facilitating both the exchange and the acceptance of ideas. This is the conversation I was just referring to. People really hear your message and become open to it. So cultivating warmth and trust also boosts the quantity and quality of novel ideas that come out of your organization. Think about the implications of that point for innovation, for creativity. The best way to gain influence is to combine warmth and strength. As usual, it's rarely one or the other. You want both. As difficult as Machiavelli says that may be to do, the article I'm referring to suggests that it's possible. The authors looked at behavioral economics, social psychology, and other disciplines to offer practical tactics for leaders hoping to project a healthy amount of both qualities. The next idea is that focus is more challenging than ever. Daniel Goleman, who kind of gave us the idea of the focused leader, went into this in an article that we published in December of 2013. And what Goleman found is that attention is the basis of the most essential of leadership skills: emotional, organizational, and strategic intelligence. I'll say that again. Attention is the basis of the most essential of leadership skills: emotional, organizational, and strategic intelligence. Never has it been under greater assault. If leaders are to direct the attention of their employees towards strategy and innovation, they must first learn to focus their own attention in three broad ways: on themselves, on others, and on the wider world. Every leader needs to cultivate this triad of awareness in abundance and in the proper balance, because a failure to focus inward leaves one rudderless, a failure to focus on others rends one clueless, and a failure to focus outward will cause you to be blindsided. The good news is that practically every form of focus can be strengthened. So Daniel Goleman, the author of the article on emotional intelligence, the man who popularized the notion of emotional intelligence all those years ago, says that cultivating this awareness explains why focus is crucial to great leadership. Focused leaders can command the full range of their own attention. They are in touch with their inner feelings. They can control their impulses. They are aware of how others see them, and they can weed out distractions and allow their minds to roam widely, free of preconceptions. The next idea is related to several of the ones I've already gone through, which is about leading innovation. Leading innovation ain't what you think it is. How can leaders build an organization that is capable of innovating continually over time? This is a question that Linda Hill and her co-authors attacked in a really terrific book called Collective Genius. And we published an article under the same name in June 2014. Linda is from Harvard Business School, and has a psychology background, I believe. So she has a certain kind of insight that I think is really illuminating. She says that you create an organization that's capable of continually innovating over time by creating a community that's both willing and able to innovate. To be willing, the community has to share a sense of purpose, it has to share values, and it has to share and embrace the rules of engagement. So as an example, Luca De Meo was Volkswagen's head of marketing communication and focused, and I know Volkswagen has a kind of a tarnished reputation right now, but what Luca De Meo did was truly extraordinary. He fostered a sense of purpose in his team by asking its members to reflect on what being part of VW meant to them. He strengthened their shared values by encouraging them to use the brand's three components, innovation, responsibility, and value, to guide their work. And he built significant responsibility and autonomy into their rules of engagement. So, for the moment, think about what VW accomplished before it kind of went off track with its most recent scandal. What Luca De Meo accomplished by focusing his team to create these shared values and willingness was truly extraordinary. To be able, remember, the two conditions were the organization has to be willing and able. To be able, companies have to generate ideas through discourse and debate. They have to experiment quickly, they have to reflect, and they have to adjust. And they have to make decisions that combine disparate and even opposing ideas. Bill Cochran, who was at the time an SVP, a senior vice president of engineering at Google, employed these capabilities both to solve the company's near-term data storage needs, and you can only imagine what Google's data storage challenges were, and to make progress toward a next-generation solution. You'll read about those if you buy the book or if you take a look at the article on hbr.org. It's truly insightful. My final idea, and this is one that really resonated for me, is that this notion of authenticity that you've seen in, we've published a lot about it, but management thinkers really have embraced it and they tout it, isn't always very helpful. It has become the gold standard of leadership, to be sure, but as Herminia Ibarra, a professor at INSEAD, argues in an article that we published, let's see, when did we publish it? I think it was January, February of 2015. A simplistic understanding of authenticity means we can limit our own growth and impact. All too often, we tend to latch onto authenticity as an excuse for sticking with what's comfortable. I'm doing I'm just keeping it real. This is how I operate. It's that sort of thing. But few jobs allow us to do that for long. In the article, Herminia explains how leaders can develop an adaptively authentic, and that's in quotes, adaptively authentic style by experimenting with many different leadership approaches. You kind of have to try on different personas to figure out who you are as a leader. And I think if you think back to when you were promoted into a new role with greater responsibility, think about how you had to figure out who you were in that role. It's okay to change tactics from one day to the next, she says. That's not being fake. It's how we figure out what's right for the challenges and circumstances we face. The challenges and circumstances we face change dramatically over time. We have to have that flexibility. She suggests actually 3 strategies that can help you break free from this self-concept that's just too rigid, that keeps you from growing. She says you can learn from diverse role models. Growth necessarily involves some form of imitation, but don't copy just one person's leadership style. Don't try to be like that guy over there. Borrow selectively from various people to create your own collage. The second strategy is to work on getting better. Set learning goals, not just performance targets. Think about the difference. Learning goals, not just performance performance targets to focus on the value of experimentation. Stretch the limits of who you are by doing new things that make you uncomfortable. Get outside your comfort zone, but that help you discover by direct experience who you're becoming as a leader. You've got to have courage to do this, but it'll pay off in spades. And finally, the third strategy is don't stick to your story in quotes. It's what I was saying before. Get rid of outdated self-concepts and draw on your personal narratives to fit your circumstances as you're taking on new challenges. That's what authenticity is. It's okay to say, I don't know, or I'm trying something new. Just, that's what being real is. Being real is not being rigidly who you thought you should be when you took the role a year ago. It's figuring out who you should be today and tomorrow. So, those are the 6 ideas. And I hope that what you take from them is 5 attributes that make a good leader: humility, flexibility, listening skills, self-awareness, and persuasiveness.